thing, I want to invite you folks I want to thank you folks for inviting me down here. Next thing, I want to congratulate you on having as many here as you have on your first anniversary. I think it was on our 9th anniversary that we had over in half an hour that I heard Doc get up and make this statement. I never paid much attention to statistics about any kind of statistics about AA. It never made any particular difference to me who was first, second, third, or fourth. I mean that I heard Doc get up and make this statement. He said that at our first anniversary, we had 6 at the end of the year. Well, I didn't remember that. And he said that 4 of them are here tonight. That was on our 9th anniversary. He said, and 4 of them are here tonight. 1 of them dead, and 1 of them's out of town and couldn't be here. All I happen to know is that a couple of them that were there, they had a little trouble during those 9 years, but they were there that night and were sober. And so that's all we had on our first anniversary was 6, and of course there's several times 5th here. And of course, when we had that anniversary, I certainly never expected to be down in North Canyon talking to folks. You know, a lot of the other places where I have been and talking, we just had in mind that we'd get sober and stay sober, and to do that, we had to go out and take this program to a few people, and not to get sober and stay sober ourselves, and then that would be the answer. Now, that's all I had in mind, I know, and I'm pretty positive that there wasn't anything much else in the mind of the others except to stay sober ourselves. That early thought has been worked quite a little differently in 2 or 3 ways. I haven't felt any great responsibility about the movement being such a wonderful movement and all those great things is going to be done. I even had a woman after one of the meetings I was Lucy come around, she's been meeting her in China for a long time. A very wonderful woman. She said, this is wonderful. She said, maybe this is the answer, or this is the answer to world peace. And I said, well, I don't know. And I hope that the answer to peace in a lot of homes on an African, where they used to go and fight with each other. Now, be your dad on over and make the world peace out of it, that's fine. But I have always had in mind that the main purpose of AA was to stay sober. And now there's a lot to AA, in my opinion, that's worth a lot more. And a lot in there outside of staying sober, but actually and honestly, I hope that we always keep sobriety as the main purpose of AA. Now, I know positively that that's the thing that we started out with, but to stay sober. Certainly, I've got a lot of things out of it further than that. Young fellow even argued with me about not so long ago and said that sobriety had been the only thing he thought. It just wouldn't have been worthwhile. And I said, well, I don't know about you, but I know about me. I said, for the last 6 months I drank, I was dragged into the hospital 8 times. Next month. And 4 or 5 times, or those times I've been tied down at the bed there too before I knew I was there. And I said, my doctor told me I didn't have but 2 or 3 more, and I knew as well as he knew that I didn't have. He said, you're getting such terrible shape that you're not going to make many more of them. And I knew it. And that was 16 years ago, and I'm still living and still feeling pretty good. It's just about a year ago I had some sort of virus, and I stayed in bed 2 days. My wife kept telling me to go to the doctor, but I think it's just a sort of a cold, and I don't want to be followed with doctors. And but I did finally go, and he told me, he said, you sick? And I said, yeah, I know. But I came back and told my wife, she said, well, I kept wanting you to go to the doctor. She said, I knew you were sick. She said, that's the first time I've seen you stay in bed all day since they used to tie you in bed 15 years ago. That was down with wild for true. I hadn't thought about it. But I said that happened to me the last 6 months I drank. And I've had, since that time, the day before yesterday, 4th day of July was when I came out of the hospital. Of course, I'd been sober some 3 or 4 days then, and that was 16 years ago that I came out of the hospital, and I've had maybe 10 Years extra of life, I know, that have been good with good health. And then he told me, I said that certainly was worthwhile if I had never gotten anything more out of it than that. But the fact that I don't go to the hospital anymore and not go through all that hell and stuff that I went through with, and the fact that I've had what number of years good lives is certainly worthwhile if I had never gotten anything more. I did get a lot more out of it, and there's a lot more in it, and I hope that the folk will get it. But I still hope that we keep that sobriety and purpose of AA. And, it's been a little bit harder for me to lead a meeting right along. I think the reason for that is that I've been doing it for so long, and the most of you probably know that I've been doing it for so long, and so you begin to wonder why in the devil I don't get any better than what I am. Not meant to make it a little bit tough on me. Well, that might be good too. Maybe they'll sort of stop asking me. I just talking. I think the first meeting that I went out of town to lead was over in Toledo, and I expect that was better than 10 years ago. Because I think it was about 2 years ago I was over in Nathan, and I was talking to Big Paul, and I said the first time I was ever over here in Toledo, he was up there from Toledo. And I said, that was about 7 or 8 years, something like that ago. He said, well, I know exactly how long it's been. That I hadn't been sober but about 3 weeks. And I was at that meeting, and I've been sober 8 years. So it's been better than 10 years, the first time, as far as I know, that I went out of town. And I've been doing it. And there's a lot of you brothers out in the background that's been doing as good a job as I can. And you ought to be up here leading this meeting instead of me. Because you do it well, and it will help you. Because in my opinion, there isn't anything much that helps a person more than leading the meetings. In fact, that was one of the main things that they had in mind when we started out. And when we went to a meeting in the early days, we didn't know when we went who was going to lead the meeting. We went and we had what we called quiet time, and during that quiet time, we was to open our minds with for instruction as to who we thought ought to lead the meeting that night. All right, then after we did that, they sat there in silence for 5 minutes while they trotted around and do things, and this fellow say this and that one, and whoever happened to have the most, we joined that, well, it's you. So we got up there and took charge of the meeting, and went and lived, and we didn't know until we got there who was going to do it, and that wouldn't be a bad idea to try out, in my opinion, every once in a while in here. It'll help, but it might mush him up a little bit for a minute or two and get us, but we'll get over it. And I used to say when I started out that if no one was helped in the meeting except me, well, I certainly knew I would be by leading the meeting that would help. And society of these fine speakers and good speakers and so forth been called in. I never have been too much in favor of that. And because I've seen some mighty good fellows take a licking on account of the fact that I'm very positive that that idea that they were in demand quite a bit of speakers sort of began to go through up here to the top of their head a little bit, and they got a little proud of it. And in fact, as I watched 2 or 3 of them, and I was sort of wondering if that wasn't happening, then 1 or 2 of them, it certainly happened probably bad to them. Now, that might not have had anything to do with it, like they did fall off on vacation, and I sort of wondered. It's a living. Now, I'm not saying what I got up here to say, or that proved a little hard, I was lucky. I've been lucky all the way through AA. That helped me on an awful lot. I never could feel particularly complimented by the reason of the fact that they asked me, because they happened to ask me just because I happened to be the person that Doc and Bill worked on and were successful with. I'm very positive that's the reason they asked me, rather than what I happened to say. Well, I had no control over the fact that they happened to be the ones that I happened to be the one that they picked up first, so I never could feel that way about it. And that didn't help on me. But I remember one time I came in there at home. I'd been to a meeting, and, I think sort of mean, something's getting sorry wrong with these natives. And they're not hardly up to par. And, just what's the matter? What's wrong? Ain't happening or something. I was rather low about how they were going. And, so, I picked up a little book there, it looked like this, and I just saw it laying there, my wife's magazine. I never looked at it, but I picked it up that night and pulled it open. Just a matter of luck, I never looked. Pulled it up there and I started to read. And why I never even worked with the heading. I don't know yet what the heading regarded for was, because the part I read was, I'm no ashamed to tell you this, but it actually happened. A fellow said he went over to his neighbors, and the fellow insisted on showing him about an hour or better of moving pictures that he'd taken of he and his family around the house there. Well, the man said, I had seen him day after day around there doing those same things, and I'd seen those rose bushes. And things that it really wasn't very interesting. It was rather boring to me. Sit down and look at those pictures. Anyway, this is always said, of course, and I could to be polite. I haven't paid Thompson said they had a little 8-year-old girl that I looked over at her. And I said, what part of the picture did you like the best? Well, she said, the part I was in. And so she said, well, I'll go. And that came in my mind. Now, you reckon that's what it started the matter? Maybe they sort of slipped up there. Maybe they hadn't been paying you hard with much attention. Have you ever read with many meetings? In the last, I wouldn't tell you this. I'm sort of ashamed of it. But it might help you. And I could have been paying as much attention to as they should or something like that. That's leading to finally hurt. And when I analyzed it down, the fact, I had to come to the conclusion that might have had something to do with the fact that I thought those meetings weren't harder entertaining as they had been because I hadn't had the spatial attention that I maybe thought that I ought to have. Although I really never particularly wanted any spatial attention because, and I told them over and over again I don't, because I'm very positive that if anybody else begins to set me up there as somebody to go by and lean on and give me spatial attention, while the old devil, he'll start giving me spatial attention too. And I've had about all the attention from that boy to the last 15 years and all my life that I've ever want. Now, I don't say that in any sacrilegious way. I mean it. Well, he's always right after it, fella. And if he says, oh, well, if I kick Bill out, I'd knock a half a dozen. Well, he'll contemplate on me, and I don't need him to contemplate. And that's the deal there. But I thought about that that might happen. And but the fact, as I mentioned a while ago, that it's the idea of sobriety and the reason that we are primarily in AA, and the fact that I never expected any great world movement or anything like that to go out of it has helped me, because in that way I can go ahead and do AA and practice AA the same way it was taught to me, which I'm going to give it to you right there in about, and it only takes me about 10 minutes to do that. That's what I ought to do, of course, and quit, but I keep on talking a long time to get up to it. And it helped me to go ahead and practice and talk AA just the way I learned it, without feeling too much responsibility of what's going to happen to the movement, and arguing with this bunch that wants to do it this way, and arguing with this bunch that wants to do it that way. And now there's quite a little bit of that, that's going on around now. Some of them want this way, and some of them want the other way. And I brought the brother today and came all the way down to Cleveland and bought my dinner to give me help with some things that he thought was so and so, and I just told him, I said, no, wait, I learned this AA one way. And I learned AA that the main purpose that I was in AA was not to save the world and not to save a lot of people, but keep Bill Dawson sober. That's the main reason I remember. To do that, I had to take this message to people. And now, from now on, they have to take over. I think sober. I couldn't keep them sober. I couldn't save the world. I don't think I was expected to save the world. And the fact is, I can't think to shoot and find any place in the Bible, any place, where anybody was supposed to save anybody. If you go back and read the fourth synoptic Gospels, you'll find the fourth Jesus attended. He said, go ye into all the world, preach the gospel. He never told you to save anybody. I even read in the Faith of the Day where that fellow Minister up there was wanting so-and-so, so he could say, well, I'll keep, see. I don't think we do that, and I don't think we cheat the sober. We can give them the message, but from there on, it's between them and this higher power as to what happened. And that's what I've been doing. Is when they ask me, go around and tell folks the AA program as they gave it to me, and sometimes a few other little things that I've noticed that I heard a fellow get up and saying came through Wednesday night, and that's the first time I heard him admit it that way. He said he stayed sober 7.5 years, and he got drunk. It took him about 15 months to get sobered back. Well, that was true. And I knew it. He's been sober since. And he admitted that he said I was this terribly intolerant son of a gun. He said I just didn't have no damn use for these fellas that came into AA and slipped. He said I just couldn't be intolerant. Well, I thank goodness I never had that down the steer. When he comes around and bells me, he said, oh, he said I had to slip. I said to them, he just went out and got drunk. Just exactly the same way I did hundreds of times after I knew I couldn't. I went out and did it. Now that's just what you did. No whipping or anything else, just start all over again. Of course, maybe it would look better to the outside world if we saved every bird fellow that came around and said he belongs to AA. I don't know how the word belongs to AA. There wasn't any joining or anything like that when I came in. And I rambled around there and talked to you. It was, as I mentioned a while ago, it was 16 years ago, about the 26th of June, that I came to over there in the City Hospital in Akron, Ohio. One Thursday morning, that's the only way in the world that I knew what particular day it was. I knew it was Wednesday, and I went in there, and the only way in the world that I remembered a year or two later that it was Wednesday was that I knew I started on Saturday. And the last time before that that I had come out of the hospital, I told my wife, I said, for goodness sakes, don't let me get the terrible shits anymore before I get into the hospital. I said, that's been hell the last 3 times, I'll tell you. See if you can't get and go in the hospital. It took me about 10, 12 days from the time I took that first drink until I ended up over there in the hospital, tied down. Took 10 or 12 days. A week of it out, like bad knee, and now. And then the last week I was up down on the 3rd floor in my home, so I was supposed to be out of town. If anybody would come in, they wouldn't hear me up there. And I was just right up there in that bed on the 3rd floor by myself, which was my bedroom with the dome curtain. But I'd go up there and hide, and every time I'd wake up, I'd just reach over and get the bottle and take another drink and go back to sleep. And keep that up for about 4 or 5 days or a week. Finally comes a day, you've heard fellas talk about blowing them up, couldn't get them down in the morning. Well, I sewed them up like that, but that never made any particular difference to me, because I knew that if I kept on swallowing them, I'd finally get one that would stay down directly. And if you do like what I've talked to you just about doing, you spend about a week drinking, and then the last week up there on the floor, just nothing to eat, just eat over that bar, go back to sleep. Finally, you wake up someday and look at us and say, no, he wasn't doing anything to do with it. It just wasn't doing anything to do with it. You fool with that now, wrong. What's going to do on the door? Another day or so of this, and we'll be damned. So, part of my wife get a hold of the doctor. I didn't go to the hospital only for the 6 weeks, but the last 2 or 3 years I drank, I never got over one without having to call a doctor. Fine, the sun. When you look at it, you know it isn't going to do anything to it. There's another brand, there's another brand, you just go full, sit down with it. You would have been about blowing it up that you didn't know it isn't going to do any good. Only been used in crime to praise it. Then you have to do something about it. And so I told her not to let me get so bad the next time, so I started on Saturday. Isn't that odd? I remember just how I took that first visit on Saturday. I went home early in the office. Figured that to stayed over. And then I got home, got up there at the house, and it was hot, and I got flowers growl. And on the break, it was worse, and there was a place over there where they sold only liquor and wine and no whiskey. And so I shook and bothered and fooled around there. I I hadn't had a drink probably for a couple of weeks then, maybe a week that long. But I was so nervous and I wanted to drink. And I finally sold myself, and I sold my wife. Well, I don't guess I sold either one of us. I don't know, but I tried to tell her all the idea that I just went over there and have a full glass of beer and come back. It was time for dinner or supper. Was set at dark, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was about time to eat, and she had the pop ready, and I'll just run over there, and I'll have a couple of cold bottles of beer, and I'll run right back. And eat right up, and I won't get drunk. Now I know if I'm going to drink a cold bottle of beer, damn, I'm going to eat right after, because that just wasted. That's all. I'm a little overhead of trouble. I ain't going to wait to be right. But I really thought that could be done, see? And I get right, and I even called, I'll take the boy, he's about 8 or 9 years, I'll take the boy along. And to ensure the fact that I'm going to come back. And, well, I don't guess I made her believe it, but she didn't. Anyhow, when? And of course, by 11 o'clock, he come over and got the boy. And took him home, and she didn't bother me. Of course, I stayed all night. When they load that up, I went looking for a bootleg though. Where they sold them out for hours. And found. And spade down, went home sometime the next day. And I had told her, for goodness sakes, don't let me get that bad anymore. So come where others. On Wednesday, she coaxed me into the hospital, and I went into the hospital. I food, and I noticed Wednesday. I hadn't been drinking too long. And I wasn't so bad that morning. And so I came to down on Thursday morning, and my mind was fairly clear because I'd only been drinking since Saturday. And drive around, I realized where I am again. And I said, well, you argue. And you've been here, either here or over in the Peoples, this makes 8 times now in 6 months. And every time you woke up as you went out of this hospital in the last 6 months, you went out here fully determined in your own mind that you wasn't going to get drunk for something like 6 or 8 months. I don't think I said I was going to quit. But I went out there fully determined that I wasn't going to be drunk for 6 or 8 months because I couldn't afford it. I was pro. And wasn't going to be long, so the wife and boy was going to be on charity, which would be terribly humiliating. And not only that, it was going to be, I was going to have to start to panhandling and drink, and boy, that was key. Now, I always felt for panhandling. Because when I wanted to drink, I wanted it. I didn't want to have to go out and try to peg somebody and spend a half an hour trying to get a hold of a drink. I wanted the right thing. And I didn't want to have to remember. Now, I could picture myself out down there on the street trying to get a hold of enough money to go and buy me a drink and have to make maybe an hour or two when I want it like I would like that. And I just really did be terrible. Well, I come to back and I said, here you are. And he didn't intend to be here. Time after time, he's been doing this now here and here. Going out of here, fully determined. You weren't going to get drunk anymore for 6 months. At least 6 or 8 months. Until he got a little money. And got back a little felt this guy. If you're on and know towards people, are told that you can do something about it. What are you going to do about it? And I didn't know. No, didn't know what to do. And that was R. Right then, the boy comes wrong to get on this old copper going up there. Well, I didn't want to argue with him. I did a little bit, but he said, get on. I don't want to argue. And I've argued. I never turned to the floor, but he told me after the guy and find out that, how do you know me too? I would call me old cop. I never saw you before in the life. That probably happened. I read with you over there in that emergency ward night after night. When they let you over there, they wouldn't take you up to the hospital, and they let you over there, could eat a rat to you. And then, think I don't know you. Well, I've never seen him before. I weren't around with but I've been over there, but I didn't be him. And so up I went, and I got a terrible wife sitting down and did cry to doom. Well, I really didn't know what was happening. My wife would always come talk to him to be told. Desertly, I don't know why she would, but she did. I remember still walking in there one morning with the doctor. I said, good morning, Doc. Good morning, honey. I'd been away, it took me a little while, you know, and I found out 11 o'clock in daylight, I never 11 o'clock in the day. I kept looking around my wife, and I said, what's those sun's doing? Yeah. He said, sun's through. Oh, yeah, I said, sun's through church. Well, sun's through church. I never said it when about noon when I went in, you know. And she said, what time the baby is? 11 o'clock. I'm here at all, but I just found out. Well, I know, but she said what day? Oh, I can get that money, they think, I mean, what the I could though. Now, where I'd done all day from 30 minutes on Monday morning, 11 like, well, I didn't remember. I feel bad down, but I had no remembrance of it. Nothing that I remember. I thought this Bill something ought to be in church. So she was sitting there, and I said hello, and she said hello. And I let her do the talking. I didn't have any fun. Say, I was licked. See, I just didn't have any. And then I didn't have any answer that morning. Said, I've been told to talk to fellas about your book. Well, I thought that is odd. Been a lot of call around there outside Brenton and some first and it's in down there and just preacher's been down there praying with my wife about it. I wasn't when I was there because I wasn't listening to them. I didn't want to listen to them. I went to church. Listen to what they had there or what in the hell they wanted to listen to me about drinking. They never got drunk, so what would I listen to? They told me all to quit. Yeah. Oh my. I knew so much more about how I ought to quit than you. I knew about how bad my finances were, and I knew there were hours of hell that I went through with night after night. And them tell me all to quit. What I want to do is, if the quitter up told me hell, but they done they ought to, you know. And also tell me all that I put, which I guess I knew probably was right. But it was so tough that way, I didn't have it. I just had to be going much better than I just knew I couldn't do that good. And of course, I pretty much like the woman that the minister was trying to get to join the church. And finally, she said, "Well, minister," she said, "I'll join, but said you'll have to bow with me. You'll have to be easy." She said, "I'm going to have a tough time." She begged the North Team trained, but things like everything I like to be. It's either illegal, immoral, or fattening, she said. She did it keep they'll be crop. So I guess I knew. Got the answer, but I didn't know how to get it. That way I didn't know how I could make it. I'd done a lot of praying about it, but as soon as I started praying about it, the idea come up about cigarettes and the anti-folker and going to picture shows, my church bounds on all those, and they wouldn't even permit me to smoke if I was up there in their basement tonight. I couldn't smoke there. I could get up and go out like we always do when we have a sofa. Get up and rock right out by the door and smoke. Well, I don't know whether. Anyway, I walked down in the basement with the outside, just outside the door or not, I don't know. But all those things that bob up there, and I said, I don't know. I'll just tell, I know I won't be able to be that good. I've done a lot of praying about it, and all those little things have come out. I said, yeah, Lord, I'll do that too. Sure, I'll do everything. But I'm a liar, and I know it. Finally, I said, well, there's no use in me lying to the Lord and praying for help. Well, you know you're lying, you're not ready to do anything. So I quit praying, and that's when I sure did start sliding in because I didn't have anything to hold on to then, and I couldn't started hitting the down this grade path. But my wife said I've been talking to a couple of fellas about you drinking. No, let's talk off that fine. That's the way I got AA. That's the way I'm coming. Of course, it isn't all that way. The story along that line, my friend. I'm just telling you those things that happened pop in my mind and helped me. The next thing Dad told me, he said, you're going to quit. And I thought, poor boy, devil, did you ever get any ass? You went like that. You must have hit a couple of daggone good fail. Make you think. That makes you feel, because she fed a couple of men. And that makes you think that I'm going to quit. I haven't heard you say that for a long, long time. She just didn't stand it up. And she didn't hear me say I was going to quit. I always say, I'll let that set this out. I'll let this out, you know. I guess I knew I couldn't quit, so I didn't want to go back on the word, and I just go around to help her and maybe help myself through saying that I'll have to cut it out. I'll have to cut it out. Knowing that I couldn't. I remember way back in 1916, I know what year it was because it was my junior year in university, and a certain boy was rooming with me at that time, and I had been terrible. Oh, the terrible one the night before, still was that morning, but sick. And I was sitting there on the bed, and I was the heaving and the gazing and the heaving and going off. And this little mountaineer, he was the worst drunk than I was. He looked over at me and said, well, she quit. Då det all you feel, då är det förklarat even fire. And I looked at him, funny as big as I was, and I said, quit. Well, you ain't that beat it, no color. I put it down and dropped it. Well, why did you go in the shop? Did you go quit? Well, now that helped. That effort that she had, I didn't have that doing. But the fact that she still could bleed and me and bleeding this program, bleed, she found something whereby I could quit, well, was a help. And she told me there were a couple of zones, she said, like you are, the man, brother Tuesday. But they get drunk, and they're time to quit. And therefore, there is no key in that way. That's what's in my mind. Well, now that can't. All these other people have been coming around here. They come around here to help with Paul Lieutenant me. They're all right, but they want to help me. And but there's nothing wrong with them. But now here's a couple of Paul Lieutenants that come to Boston, and well, now that helped my egotism quite a little bit. But they admitted that they were just had the same licking as I had. Well, then you take the part to look down on me. Well, I'll use your willpower. And I've used my willpower, and you have too. Because when you get over, you have a health spikes put on that time. If I'd had sense enough, I could have bought that first drink easier than I could have fought it out there after I'd been dancing for a week or two. But finally knew I had to quit and just there and fight it out. And now that's when you really got real tough fights put out. And I knew my preacher had never gone through that. Sitting there for a pair of toothpick and a hold and fighting that out to get over. Good by then, now that's a tough job. I eat tell him all the time. I said, it's always work kind of for him to get drunk, but hell gets over. That's what I when I started trying to get over. That was when all trouble started. And but these fellows, well, they leave me to die. Therefore, I wasn't going to 2 months, but that was all. Kind of put them down all month. And so then there was one other time. He said, "You're going to quit that hell?" Well, not even forget it. And I thanked her for the time, put it all in mind without saying so, because I never had much time. But you know, and I talked about the theater and all that. You know, I had with my doctor, I had a regular doctor that's been helping me for 2 or 3 years. And he was a mighty nice fellow, and he was a minister too. And my wife and I talked to him about taking care. And he said, "Here, man, what going to do, Bill in the door?" Said he's a confirmed drunkard, I believe that's what he called. He said, "I'll be looking behold." And he said, "I'm a minister, and I'm a doctor." He said, "I ought to have the answer, but I don't have any. All in the world I can do is help him through this pain, going get sober enough, get back to life, stay sober a few days. But that will work and won't be long. He'll be calling me again." I know it because I've had him before, but I pretty soon tell him to hell with him. I don't want to be fooled with him. And even good friend of mine, like my wife and then I, they did more for her than they did for me. And so I think, well, and I said, "Well, next person I said, well, what are we going to charge her?" And I never forgot that answer. She said, "You know, that's the plain thing about that backward. We both been church members for a long time now. I'm not knocking church. No, I'm not. I'm not doing that. But we had been, and had been constantly going. No, I didn't go she raised it because I could drunk too often. But when I was sober enough, I went pretty drunk sometimes to church. But so I said, "What are you going to charge?" And she said, "You know, that's the same thing about it." Said not only they said not only whether they weren't going to charge anything, but they said you couldn't pay them a cent if you had $1 million. Now they touched the devil for it. The being with no place that way. But there's another thing, May. I'm not going to preach to you. You go out and handle your work. I'm not going to tell you. Because if you don't get it right and you get drunk, it's going to be you that's going to be picking not me. I'll sympathize with you. I didn't see you because I don't want to try it anymore. I had enough. It wouldn't take a cent for that work if you had $1 million. You'd been paying for it. Well, that's the way it started out. I ain't no pay for it. I'm not trying to fault anybody else, but that's the thing that was one of the main things that helped me to believe that these fellas had something. Here was two fellas I'd never seen or heard tell of. It was 4 weeks in just like I was. And they were willing to come over there and take their time and talk to me to show me a program whereby I could stay sober, and not only would they not charge me anything, but I couldn't pay them if I wanted to. And that was really the first thing that interested me in AA. And I'd one of the last to come over. And they came over, and I could give you this program a long time ago. You see, there wasn't any book then, there wasn't any flower tips, there wasn't any other nice, good literature we have, some good and some not so good, and that we have around. And we didn't have any of those things. It was just those two fellows there that said they wanted to get sober. And they thought they'd hit on a program, whereby they could stay sober, and the part of that program was that they had to bring it up to me. And I thought he forgot that last thing. We thought they told me that as part of the program that they had to bring things to me. And here was the program. That ain't no flower theft. The flower theft are all right. They're fine. And but I learned it the other way. They told me that I had to really want to quit. They said, if you want to quit, well, let's look at it. Just go ahead and get drunk. That's all right. We not the chicken liquor. We want to stay sober. And to stay sober, we have a program, and to stay sober, we think we have to take that program to somebody else. But now, if you want to go out and get drunk and just sit and die down in this hospital like that, well, all right, and we'll just right on out. They won't argue with you. That's your free privilege. Well, I took them fellas, and they're pretty uppish about this thing. All these other fellas want to plead with me, And they said, if you want to get drunk, okay, get drunk. But they said, we want to quit. We'd like to see you quit. But we'll leave it to you. You want to quit. And that means that do you think you can quit by yourself? Well, that's pretty holiday. I'd always been pretty self-sufficient. I was going to run things, insisted I was. And I had told a lot of fellows, I saw my cousin die before he was 27 years old from liquor. I run with. I've held him in bed night after night with E.K. And I saw him die. But I was smart. I wasn't going to let this. And he told me that, Bill, I don't want to get drunk like this. But he said, I can't help it. Well, I started like a preacher. I thought, well, you can do 10. I told him, I said, gee, you're drinking too much too often. A lot of them had, and he said, all these are about why you get de-alcoholics. And I said, I don't know, after hearing all those stories. I finally come to the conclusion that the reason I became an alcoholic was that I drank too much whiskey too often over too long a period. I think that's what happened. Now, if I could avoid just one of those, maybe I wouldn't have become an alcoholic, and I thought I was going to avoid them, but I kept on until I was dead as shit, he was. And, but I kept on, as I saw fellas. I said, now when it starts doing me like that, well, I'm going to quit. Well, when I got down there, it didn't look hardly sad, and I said, well, that's pretty tough, but I do know when it starts doing me like this now. Then I know I'm going to do something about it. Now look right on, clear down the bottom. I just stepped below in the standard. Year after year, got my standard got worse, I lowered it too, and so I was clear down to the bottom. And as far as liquor was concerned, I hadn't been down in the Johnville because I'd had a little money left in, and I'd had some at there before I got to bed, and so I had that run out. And I kept fooling the banks. I was pretty slick at that. And so it had run me out longer. I would have been down there before. So they told me I had to have an honest desire and weep to quit. Well, I don't guess I want to quit. But oh my goodness, I'd have had the upper. This kind of did them wrong. There wasn't anything in that anymore. I sure would. I certainly, if I didn't want to quit drinking, I wanted to quit getting drunk and get me taken over to the hospital and tied down and put in jail, things like that. I didn't like that. And so they asked them the next question whether I thought I could quit by myself, and that was pretty hard to answer. I caved in it, but I had found them that I couldn't handle a little silly thing like that anyhow. Oh, if he'd done that, I was going to do it all my life. They said, now, you can handle it by yourself, all right, then we'll go around and we'll somebody can handle it. And that we won't quit. And to do that, we got to take your problem to somebody that knows you quit and knows that he can quit. And we just wait in time. If you don't want to quit, or wait in time. If you don't, if you think you can quit by yourself, that's fine. Just go ahead and quit. And they directly Thursday these things over, and then asked me another question. Said, do you believe in a higher power? I said, yes, I believe in God, and I believe in the Bible. I never have lost faith. I know that's the answer, but I need that. What am I going to get? Because I just can't be that good. I just can't. I said, I just be so, man. What can my bird do about families? Well, they give me some very good sense there. They said, well, now don't you think that this great problem is causing you more trouble than anything else now? And don't you think that you don't have about all that you can do to get rid of this drink problem? Don't you think it's going to use about all your time now getting rid of it? Well, I said I wouldn't be surprised. I certainly haven't been doing very good at it. Well, we said, now let's concentrate on the drink, and we'll forget cigarettes and the penny a poker and the other little things like that for a while. You concentrate on it, and you work on that. And then after we get sort of straightened out on that thing, you start thinking about them other things, and if you still think you're get rid of that, well, then you start working on those. Well, no, I said, that's pretty good pass. Pretty good pass. So I said, all right, I believe in the Bible, believe in God. I know that's the answer, but I haven't been able to get it. And the next question they asked me was, would I be willing in the presence of somebody else? We sort of split that. They don't use that exact that way anymore, but they said, would you be willing in the presence of somebody else go to the higher power, which to me was God's, and admit that you have a side of them that you can't handle and that you won't help? And they left me there and studying over. I had to want to quit. I had to realize that I couldn't do it by myself. I had to breathe in some higher power that could help me. And I had to be willing to humble myself enough to go to that higher power and admit that I would. I had a problem that I couldn't handle and ask for help. And I stayed there on that old hospital bed, got no wind in July, and I put up a fire. I thought about all the things that I was going to have to give up if I made this surrender. All the old road looked completely and dark out there, a straight and narrow road. The all looked really narrow. Boy, never long over. That's right, I'm done with this food. I said, it ain't gonna be no fun this lot though. Oh, I know now. The devil, he was fooling me, you know. He had them things. He knew what would hold me back. And he was using them things, you know. And I was dealt pretty worldly. I love worldly things yet. So I went over all those things that they'd said to me, and I went back over my life, things that I'd thrown away, material things, and other things that I'd thrown away. The material things didn't worry me too much. And although I certainly didn't have any of them left, and the opportunities I had been worrying me too much. But I then began to think about the humiliation of sorrow and things that I had caused some other mighty fine people. My mother and my wife, the boy was getting old enough to know. And I just went back over what kind of a heel I'd been. And I can tell you the thing didn't look very nice. Certainly didn't. I'd had an awful lot of people that had been awful nice to me. My dad never sent to school and paid money. They didn't have to go out something deep to do it, but I remember I was drunk back in 1917. My dad got killed in that year, and I would go in school, and I was dumped when they called on the telephone. I would be dumped, but I was handling it, but they couldn't know that. They brought him over there to Lexington and died. We had to take him home. I had to take my fathers along with me. But I didn't get drunk. I was drinking whiskey and Boston. And then I, with my being during the university, and the first time I started to die. I knew all with the drunk. I said, well, now you're a drunk and they know it. Now your dad left the mom with two little kids, 308 history. And I'll go back to university and things in the summertime. I'm thinking that if I got away from school and stayed down on the farm, because through the summer I went home, I had to stay pretty. I didn't get drunk down, but I had to be pretty careful about Dad because he told me out and I wouldn't get no more money down in school and I knew it. So when I got drunk around home on the farm, I had to be very careful about it. And so I stayed around there. Then Mom said, well, all right, you rather go back to school. So I took those excuse and I stayed around there. Up in April, there, part of April, and one day I talked to her in the room. And I wanted to drink. Then I left my pocket. So I just stepped in every room, cause all in it then drink, and I closed the door right in the thing. Pulled my bottle out, started taking a drink, you know. Well, she just opened the door and looked in there. She stood there and looked at me, man, and my spine. She said, are you a Garfield? I said, yes, I am. She said, well, I beat you as bad as her. Only already knew you wasn't one of the other the doctor told. She said, I'll beat you as bad as he is. Well, I said, almost, Mama. She said, what are you going to do about it? I said, I don't know. What's that? I don't either. Said, with Dad and I took you over to school on out for 4 years, and all we run her about to be a company. But I guess that's right. I said, I'll go down and join you on. Get over. Well, I won't go into that, boy. That was a long time ago. Mom lived up 13 years after I got sober. And I was awful glad. But I went back over, and I'm going to make, I could have quit already. I went back over all those things that I did those people, and I said, boy, you sure have been a hero. You don't have very much left, you know. The rest time you better start time to be something about, and I'd up for some of those things that you've done towards people. So I said, well, Lord, I've had enough of this. I don't want to be drunk anymore. I've had enough. According to what the doctor said and according to what I pray, I don't have very many more. Stay around here. I'm pretty well wrecked from every standpoint in the world. I'm left. I don't have very much left to turn over to you, but what I have left, I'm going to turn it over to you now. I'm not going to be a captain of the boat from here on because, boy, I've been running this boat now for a long time. Not sure I've made a wreck out of it. From now on, I'm going to try to find out the instructions from you. I'm not going to, when I do read and pray, tell you what all the things that I want. You know, there's another thing I ought to quit. Done an awful lot of these prayers. They're almost sacrilegious. But sometimes they'll tell the Lord what he ought to do. What faith and Lord he ought to do down there. They'll just try it over and over again. Tell the Lord what he ought to do all the time. He knows what to do. I'd like to spend a little more time asking the Lord that he might be worthy that we get some of these things that we're asking for. Like the woman told the little boy, he got down and said he's crying. He said, Mother, I'd like that. Well, she said that was pretty good. She then got on, she spend a little less time telling the Lord what to do and a little extra force for duty. He let him tell you what to do. Lord said, no, instead of going ahead and running this chain, telling me, come on, don't you put this over and this over, I'm going to try to find out what you want me to do. I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to try to find out what your will is for me, and I'll do the best that I can to get it out. I know I'm human, and I'll be able to do it all the time, but I'll keep on trying. If I fall down, I'll go back after you again. Because I don't want to say, well, I've had all this I know. I've just had all I know, and I want to quit. I've had enough. And I'm going to rely entirely upon you. When that old thoughts about drink start coming on, I ain't going to carry on that argument. Every time I started thinking about a drink when I was trying to say die, an argument came up. Did I say? And I could get more excuses somewhere other than why I should. Anyhow, whoever was standing on the other side of that argument about I should was sure a winner, because he nearly always let. I said, Lord, when that argument comes up from now on, I'm going to turn that argument over to you, because that's one argument I always lost. And I'm going to have to end that job, and I ain't going to even start any argument about it. I'll just say, well, out here, you could get the problem over. And I've had enough. I don't want to do this anymore. Anything that I have to give up or anything I have to do, I'm willing to do, and I meant it. I did that before, but I didn't mean like I come. Sir, when he first come back, I said, well, I done that. I only did not sit there now. And They've got it to do it. I'll have to admit that I can't do anything about it because I know I've been struggling going through this. I do believe in that higher power, and I already have gone to that higher power and asked for help, and I'm willing to do it again here or any place in the world. It doesn't make any difference. I'll never be ashamed to admit that I kept going after that help any clay court might be. I've done that, and I'll do it again. I don't know whether I get what I should have or not, but I told them I'm willing to. They said, that's fine. And now there's one other thing you gotta do. You gotta go out and take that same program you come out here. And that's what I'm doing here tonight. I could have made it a lot shorter and quick. I kept you folks. And, but you know, these days it started talking. I went over to Aiden Mission not too long ago, and I went along and it told me that the one and it thought it did fit, but I forget it once in a while. Said there was one he follows up all, you know. The crowd got restless and he climbed along there. With the hammer, and they're climbing down. They got restless again. This fellow went on and time and again. That climbing, sliding down. They got restless again. He got sort of there, and he hit desk real hard. Walked over here, hit the fellow sitting here in the front and side of the head and knocked the line down. Fellow sitting there behind, lead down, I took and grabbed him, poked him up. He said, "Are you hurt, young Donchi?" He said, "No, I'm still drained." So hit me again. Now that was the idiots about it, and that's the way I better go out and tell them. I haven't added much to it because I'm sort of afraid Bruce didn't work too much to me. It meant those 8 or 10 years of my life. I know the right 8 or 10 years, and it's in good health and so on. And so I certainly think an awful lot of it because I've heard an awful lot of people say that they were sober at the result of following that program of the 12 steps they were added in as we went along and started to learn. You can take those 5 that I gave you and pretty much spread them out and make 12 out of them. And that was what was done. I've heard so many people say that they were happy and believed in following that program. And I know that there's a lot of people out that are happy and in homes and happy homes that otherwise would have been dead as had been in the asylum or they'd been in jail tonight. And the program means a lot to me. And I certainly hope we keep it simple along that line. And if you read this flash reader or grapevine, you'll see the first article in there by Paul Degree for whatever his name is. And he said he was an atheist, he wasn't a drunkard, but he learned. He said he was an absolute atheist. But he said by his association with AA, he has succumbed to believe in God and prayer. Now that's worth an awful lot to that man. That's worth an awful lot to him. And he said was his simplicity and the way that we would answer that brought him from complete atheism back to a place where he could pray to God. And I've heard so many people, so many places all around over the turf say this. I came into AA solely for the purpose of the title, but it's into AA that I have found God. And I know, and most of you know how well worthwhile that is. That's the reason I hope with you for AA or program. I don't get angry because I don't feel too much responsibility myself. The only thing in this program that I have is worthwhile that I can take the program on, that somebody gave to me, and whereby I had had the benefit of that, I can take it on to them and give it to them. But from there on, it's between them and that higher power, whether they make it or not. There isn't any question about that. It's between them and their higher power, whether they're able to make it or not. And so for that reason, I don't get too much disturbed when I see these things working around because I'm very confident the foundation. It's the focus is on a good, firm foundation. It's doing an awful good for it to dishes of Aiden go along. And thank you folks for being faithful and listening to me there for as long as you did. And thank you for inviting me down here. I congratulate you on the number you had here and this your first anniversary. And I wish you a lot more good anniversaries.